U.S. and U.K. hit Houthi targets in Yemen. That took place on Saturday in response to attacks by the Iranian-backed militants last week in the Red Sea and Gulf of Aden. And for more on all this, I want to bring in Michèle Flournoy, former Undersecretary of Defense for Policy, who is now co-founder and managing partner of WestExec Advisors. Great to see you this morning. Michèle, just help us understand sort of where we are in all of this and what comes next, really.
Since early February, and they struck, missile storage sites, radar facilities, basically trying to diminish the Houthis' ability to continue these strikes in the Red Sea. But the Houthis' response was very defiant. They clearly are going to continue their efforts until the Gaza war ends. And, short of invading Yemen, which is not in U.S. interests, I think this is going to be a continued campaign of using air and missile strikes to try to continue to degrade their capabilities. But I think this is going to go on for some time until we see a permanent ceasefire. Is there something that we should, could the U.S. do more than it's doing? Should it be doing more than it's doing? I think that we are doing, as much as we can, given the intelligence we have. It's not like we have a lot of folks on the ground in Yemen. So I think as we find targets, the United States is striking them. I think the U.S. is also working hard to interdict missile and weapon supplies going to the Houthis from Iran. You remember a few weeks ago, we sadly lost a couple of Navy SEALs that they were involved in those operations. So, I think the U.S. and this coalition we've built, this is now a number of countries that have banded together trying to address this problem. But it's a difficult one because they have a lot of capacity to continue taking pot shots at shipping. And even if they're not terribly accurate or effective, they are forcing shippers to change their routes and to avoid the risk. I want to pivot for a second. Anthony Blinken made some critical comments about Israel over the weekend, or maybe it was on Friday now, around some of the settlements in the West Bank and the like. To the extent that you talk to people behind the scenes, what do you think the relationship between the U.S. and Israel is looking like right now? Look, I think there is a very bipartisan strong support for Israel's security, and that hasn't changed. But what is happening is there's growing frustration with President Netanyahu and his policies, because I think the administration has been trying to find a path through this crisis to, see the hostages freed, see some resolution of the conflict, and then use that as a pivot point to work towards more of a strategic realignment in the region. You have Saudi Arabia and others wanting to improve relationship with Israel and the U.S. and to ally against Iran. But finding a long-term solution for the Palestinians has to be part of that equation. And Netanyahu has just been completely unwilling to really talk about that or even to acknowledge that it needs to be part of the solution. So I think there's growing frustration with Netanyahu and the way he's prosecuting the war and his unwillingness to really consider what needs to come after the war is ended.
Michelle, the settlements notwithstanding, and I understand that criticism, but Hamas knows exactly what they're doing. And I'm looking at a journal op-ed piece today, admittedly from a spokesman of the Israeli Defense Forces. But it is true that the Hamas is hiding behind citizens in Gaza right now. They know exactly what they're doing, and they co-opt American media like 60 Minutes last night. I watched a piece on 60 Minutes. It's exactly what the design of this whole strategy is. And it's really kind of nauseating to see it happen. And the poor Gazan people are in the middle of everything that's happening. But it's all orchestrated, and we're going to criticize Biden is under increasing pressure to criticize Netanyahu. And it just plays right into the hands of the savages that orchestrated the October 7th attack in the first place.
Well, I think, first of all, I agree with you. Hamas uses the civilian population and civilian infrastructure like schools and hospitals as human shields, and they operate under those hospitals and in those schools and so forth. So they bear primary and first, responsibility for the horrible civilian casualties that have happened. And I think right now, it's less criticism of Netanyahu for the prosecution of the war, although there has been some of that. It's more, how his inability to think about beyond the war and some resolution to the larger Palestinian situation. And when you start to talk about building settlements, more settlements in the West Bank, or now even on the far right in Gaza, that's basically taking, that potential longer-term resolution off the table. And so I think the primary criticism has not been about tactics, it's been about the strategic outlook and how his failure to think strategically.
Yeah, I think they want to just, once Hamas is gone, I guess they'll move to that next, if that ever were to happen, but it's not yet. So
well, my worry is Ramadan is coming, and Ramadan historically has been a time of flaring up of clashes. I worry about the West Bank exploding. So they've got to get to a hostage deal and some temporary ceasefire before then, and then, buy some time to sort out some of these larger issues.